Hello, thank you for being here. Ray Eisenreich. My capstone is on what are the 5 most critical components of STEM curriculum design that promote students' self-efficacy. This question I derived after research and knowing that I wanted my focus of my capstone to be on STEM self-efficacy. Why STEM self-efficacy? I was drawn to this after realizing my own STEM self-efficacy was lacking when I was growing up. And I have that STEM self-efficacy. What that is a person's judgment about their ability to organize, to do tasks. It's that they can persevere, see themselves as someone who can do hard things, who can be a scientist and engineer. With that, I know that this is important not only for students, for educators, but as a researcher, it became valuable to me as well, believing that I could do this capstone, do this research. And as I said, I was someone who really lacked self-efficacy, especially in STEM growing up. So this topic is something that is important to me, and I want my students to be able to have the STEM self-efficacy that I didn't have for them to thrive. I conducted a lot of research during this for my literature review. In my literature review, I used a plethora of research and different authors and writers. Juan Bandura, who is kind of the first guy who labeled that self-efficacy, kind of came up with that term to label what that feeling was. And he says that the rationale behind the importance of students' self-efficacy is grounded in achievement and self-recognition. I really held on to this quote when going into my research, developing what those criteria were to help promote self-efficacy, and that students need to feel successful, that they want to feel successful, that they want to feel like they can achieve the task at hand and believe in their self while doing that task. Some other quotes I pulled were on 2 of the different criteria of self-efficacy, one being hands-on learning. Hands-on learning is able to help promote self-efficacy in students by making it more engaging, reducing anxiety by working with a team, and being able to hold those tangible items in their hands and see it more applicable in the world around them. I also have one here about peer support, about collaboration, and how that can reduce feelings of isolation, frustration. When you're working with a team, it's not all that pressure on you, and you're able to work with a team like how STEM professionals work in the real world. For this promoting of STEM self-efficacy, I decided to develop a rubric. And I wanted my rubric to be able to be used for educators in any content areas of STEM, whether that's science, technology, engineering, math, or just a STEM lesson in whole. And when this was developed for 4th to 6th grade STEM lessons, it can be adapted, but that is that main target audience there. It can be applied or used during or after lesson development. So while you're creating curriculum, basing it off, making sure you're hitting these areas of criteria, or if you have curriculum already, then how can we improve this? How can we better promote STEM self-efficacy in our students by using this tool? And how it's used by comparing the lesson plan to those 5 criteria, where you will see right here, this is the rubric. So our criteria is active learning and hands-on opportunities, inquiry-based learning and authentic problem solving, self-identity and career awareness, collaborative learning, and supportive educator feedback. These 5 criteria were chosen due to my research in the literature review, what was saw there. And then I have those ranked from low, medium, and high. So seeing, hey, where is my lesson hitting these areas? Am I able to hit these 3s where it's, as an example of active learning and hands-on learning, it's including students on the experiments, building or modeling. You're using real-world tools and materials. Yet, if you have part of those, you might not be hitting that 3, that high area. And then, of course, the 1 where it's lecture-based, minimal, no student-led exploration. So it gives you the option, the opportunity to kind of step back and look at your lesson and where these areas are being hit. Are we meeting this criteria so that as educators, we're doing what we can to promote STEM self-efficacy in our students? An example here is for my project, I used 5 different lessons and graded them on the rubric and included rationale and different ideas on where I ranked each of these criteria. So overall, for this planning and investigation, a lesson that has students look at different materials using their eyes, a magnifier, and a microscope. They're able to draw and write observations that they're perceiving from these different tools. So overall, my rationale was that it is a great lesson. It allows students to use real-world tools. It allows them to explore, have fun, but being scientists still in a practical way. So it was an overall score of 11 out of 15 by using the 1, 2, and 3 for the low, medium, high rankings. But one example I have is the inquiry-based learning and authentic problem solving. You'll see that this was ranked at a 2 at a medium level, where students engage in limited inquiry or guided problem solving. Real-world connections may be surface level. So although this lesson does use real-world tools, it's able to have feedback. The inquiry-based is lacking in a way that it is a problem that they are given. There's not exploration, there's not an opportunity for students to take it a step further and say, how could I use this information on a question that I have or something that I would like to explore? It lacks creativity, right, because of that tight structure. So being able to look and reflect off of what this rubric tells us gives us the opportunity to better advance our lessons so that we can promote that STEM self-efficacy within our students. While I was looking at my conclusions, my limitations, and my takeaways, there are limitations, although this rubric I think is an excellent tool. I think that it is really awesome and can be used to help promote STEM self-efficacy. The limitation being the audience. This is for educator use. This isn't a tool that parents can use or students can use. It's for the educator. And with that, it is then additional work for the educator. We know as teachers that there's always work to do, there's always more work to do, there's always additional resources. So it does have that drawback of, hey, this is another step for educators to do. And there is no direct data as of this point for students' perceptions of their own self-efficacy. This is based off of the educator, about the lesson development. We're not seeing the outcomes of students' growth in self-efficacy at this point. My takeaways were that it is a promotion of self-efficacy. I think that self-efficacy, I think we can all agree, is important for students to have. It's an important skill and an important tool that students need. And there's a lot of future work that's in this that is exciting, that where this rubric could go next, where this tool could go next, whether it be different grades or different content outside of STEM. Maybe there is a pre and post test that can be used to collect hard data so that we can better this rubric and make it more successful. And one of my biggest personal takeaways is the educator self-efficacy. I think that as I developed this rubric and have started to use it, I've grown my own self-efficacy in my teaching and my STEM ability and my ability to help know that I'm doing what I can in relation to the curriculum to help promote this within students. And that makes me feel more successful, and it gives me a guide and a tool to better my own self-efficacy in that way. And the knowledge of self-efficacy. I want people to read this or see this tool, this rubric, and see that it's important, that self-efficacy is important. There's so many different things as educators that we're thinking about and worried about and needing to hit, that just a reminder of, hey, self-efficacy, this is a thing. It's important that we want our students to feel successful, and a big part of that starts with those students' self-efficacy. So a question that I have for us is, what are some practical steps schools or teachers could take to increase STEM self-efficacy based on what we've learned? Thinking about that criteria and our positions in different schools and educator positions, some practical steps.
Well, I was just thinking for myself, like thinking about the rubric.
Yeah.
especially like the inquiry one that you were talking about, if I were to start the year, I feel like I would definitely not be at a 3 yet. And so it'd be kind of that starting at the 1, but then using the criteria you have on the rubric to realize where I'm going next. So like starting with those routines and procedures, and then kind of getting the kids to realize they can do it on their own, and they can make mistakes and try something new. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like you have to shoot for a 3 every time for every single lesson, because that's not feasible.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, that maybe this is really a holistic view, that if you take this activity that you do for this week and then the next and the next, overall you want to make sure you have a lot of 3s, but it really might not be practical to have 3 on everything that you do, because there might be some things you do need to give them, like you need to work through this thing to be able to do the next thing. So this one's going to be a little bit fake, but how might you expand that the next time, right?
Yeah, building off of it.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. If you mapped out your entire curriculum, right, like what would that look like? I think you would, no matter how hard you try, have some 1s, but you would be pushing toward more 3s as in a holistic way. That's what I was sort of thinking about, is like lesson development, curriculum development with that.
Yeah, totally. Like what you said about like throughout the year, like it's going to start more lower, but then wanting to push for those higher numbers. And yeah, I mean, even the example I had was, had some 1s and some 2s, but overall it's still a great lesson. It still helps promote self-efficacy. So yeah.
Yeah, it would be interesting for me, like the question I would have is the one that you posed earlier was, how does it compare to student self-efficacy? And so would it, if you gave them a little thing, how did you feel about your ability to do this and to problem solve and question and make mistakes, whatever? Like, how would those compare? And then how would that growth show as you grew? How did they grow along the year? I think that would be a really fascinating study to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also just with STEM in general, I feel like right now we're in a period of being very reading and math heavy, so finding ways to bring that technology, engineering stuff into other subjects as well, so maybe it doesn't hit all those points of the rubric, but we find a way to bring in the, like, seeing themselves in STEM careers in writing or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it might not be like a hitting every part of that lesson or a specific science lesson that has everything, but finding ways to bring it in other areas.
Totally.
Yeah, and it seems like engineering design fits with that really naturally, to give students the only thing, I kept thinking about your one about that it's a problem you're giving them. I think we still do that in engineering design, because we can't just say solve a problem that's really interesting to you, right?
Yeah.
But we might ask them what are some problems and take it from there. So I was kind of wrestling with that in my head as you were talking.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Well, thank you all. I appreciate your taking the time to look at this presentation to learn about this rubric and promoting the STEM self-efficacy of our students. Thank you.